I got the live sign, so I guess we're up and running.
We are up and running.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to UGA Sports Live. My name is Rodney DeBolsa. I'm joined by Dane Young, Trent Smallwood, and Jake Roos, the three guys who actually make the show worth watching. We are all coming live from our homes. We have yet to repopulate in Classic City Eats on Baxter Street, where we would all like to be. But as it stands right now, we are split up and we'll hopefully be back there soon. We could also do a show from Athens Ford. They're up and running. They're selling cars left and right. So swing out by Athens Ford if you need to. We could go by Europi. Europis are open. They're not, I don't know if all of them are, but they do have 70 plus locations. So it's very likely there's a Europi open near you. And of course, I know Academia Brewing Companies, they just came out with new beer this past week. So if you want to swing by Academia Brewing Company, get great beer, get great food, they have it for you as well. If you're watching on 365 Game Day, give them a like on the Facebook page. Or if you're watching on 11 Live, give them a like on their Facebook page. And I will say, I've never been more impressed with our partnership with 11 Live. The work they are doing, that surprise series they did where they took fans of the Hawks, the Braves, the Dogs, Atlanta United, and they just had conversations with nurses and doctors. And then they would bring on, these celebrities to join the Zoom call. That was a fantastic series. So shout out to Alex Glaze and Maria Martin for those. Those are good shots, good stuff. So, and also just if you need COVID-19 information, there's not a better spot to get it than our friends at 11 Live. So please, if you're on their Facebook page, just hit like. It doesn't hurt you, and it will really help get you a lot more information. Again, with things kind of opening up, we're getting a lot more positive signs, guys, that we will actually have a season, that it will actually be played on time. I don't feel like I'm jumping too far down the track to say that the signs are pointing that way. Again, we could have a rebound. We could have it. Crap could happen. But I think the latest I'm seeing is pretty positive. Baseball's coming up with some plans. And everything I've heard from an insider perspective is that everybody wants to play on time. The question, though, is I don't want to say that we're more positive here in the South, but it seems that way. It seems like, the SEC and these other schools, like, hey, we're going to play, but then some other conferences are a little bit more hesitant. Do we see a situation where Georgia, the SEC schools start on time, but the other schools don't? What have you guys been hearing?
Well, I mentioned, prior to this, and I saw this yesterday from Barrett Salib, that he mentioned something about Clay Helton kind of positing that the idea had been thrown around in the Pac-12 that perhaps they would do a conference-only schedule. And I know that's something we talked about here a couple of weeks back. We talked about the possibility of, maybe that's what you do. It cuts down on travel. It cuts down on, going cross-country, and then it allows you a little bit more regionality. I think that you're going to have to, as weird as this whole thing is, and as difficult as it is for everyone to kind of pin down and make the right decision, I think the NCAA at some point is going to have to step in and say, all right, look, here's what you got to do, because otherwise I think you're going to end up with imbalances. Can you have the Pac-12 playing a conference-only schedule while the SEC plays Alabama State? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, does that make sense? Does something like that affect things? Does it boost their rating? There's got to be some sort of parity. There's got to be some sort of idea, I think, for continuity's sake there. But I think conference only makes a lot of sense if that's the direction you end up going. I think everyone would really love that. And it's not like, you're not losing the Notre Dame game this year if you're Georgia. You're really losing nothing out of conference in terms of a big marquee game. So, it would be disappointing for some fan bases, certainly, but I think that it's not the worst option at all.
I think one reason you're probably seeing kind of a different level of positivity or negativity is just that the country is very different. In places that are more populated, it's probably more of a concern just because concentration seems like it makes this worse. But in places that are a little bit more rural, where you can get away from each other a little bit more, or where frankly, lifestyles really aren't that different because you didn't spend that much time with a ton of people anyway. I mean, we're urban and rural is probably the biggest divide that we have in America in some ways. And I think you're seeing that at play with some of the decisions that are being made here. Because if a power broker in Georgia or Alabama that are outside of Atlanta or Birmingham are saying, hey, we think we can have a season, everyone else is like, yeah, why not?
That's a good point.
Could this be the year that pushes the expansion of the playoffs? If it went to an all conference season?
Now that's a very intriguing point, and not one I've heard anybody bring up. So yeah. Now the question would be, if you could, I know we've talked about, well, everything's being made on the fly this year. These decisions are kind of being, evaluated, and it doesn't have to look like this going forward. I do wonder, though, if you were to expand the playoff this year, if you could ever go back from that, if you open it up. I don't think so either.
No,
not after that money comes in.
And that's been the fear. The people that say, hey, it's that slippery slope argument we've heard when we say go from 4 to 6 or 4 to 8, and like, well, then it'll be 64 before long. It's like, okay, maybe not. But if there's one thing you can ask my boy, the thing I talk about all the time is the slippery slope argument is a fair argument because we see it. It happens. If you get that one little concession, the people who were designed who are fighting to get that one concession, they don't dismantle their infrastructure once they achieve that political success or whatever success that is. So if there is a group that says, hey, we're fighting to get 8 teams, and they create a working group to get 8 teams, well, once they get 8, they don't really stop there. They do kind of work to get more, but I don't think it would go past 8 or 16 at the worst. The idea that you're going to have 64 or 128 teams in a playoff is just garbage. But people like to use it as a scare tactic to say you can never expand it because once you do, it will never stop. But I do think, though, Jake's point, if you did it 1 year, it's here forever. There's no going back. Here's my question, though, about the whole conference-only idea. If it's safe to play one game, Georgia versus South Carolina, Georgia versus Tennessee, Alabama versus Florida, why is it not safe to play Alabama versus Tennessee State?
Because they take their own private planes and stuff it's not like they're going to the airport.
Right. The whole I go back. I get it because you'd have the fewer games, the fewer exposures. I kind of get that concept, but I'm like, if it's still that dangerous that you need to have fewer games in order to avoid the exposures, like, in other words, we can still go to Kroger, we can go to Publix, but we can't go to a sit-down restaurant where side by side. It just makes me, I just think maybe it's, I'm kind of of two minds there. I'm like, if it's safe to play, it's safe to play. If it's not safe to play, then it's not safe to play. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's what keeps going through my head.
Well, my thing, though, is I just don't see a situation where you can have one conference that decides we're going conference only. Yeah. Because that to me creates imbalance. Suddenly you've eliminated some possibilities for those slip-up games. You've taken some injury risk off the table for those teams as well. So you can, in my opinion, it creates a competitive imbalance because you've got 3 or 4 more games where a guy can get hurt or where a guy can, where a team can trip up against a lesser opponent. Or if you're USC, for example, maybe you lose Notre Dame off of your schedule, and that's a pretty sizable boost to your chances moving forward. So I think that's where it comes into play for me. Is I don't necessarily disagree with your point that if it's safe to play one, it's safe to play all. I do think that's true, but I do think that you can't have a situation where everybody's kind of on their own course and then expect everybody at the end to sort of come together and make sense of all of it, I guess.
To Roddy's point, though, the talking point on that is that the travel is the reason that you limit schedule, right? Well, then Missouri needs to not come to South Carolina because, same conference or whatever, but they're not close.
Yeah, is West Virginia going to go play in Austin? It's it's a weird. It's a weird can of worms. But like I said, I just don't see. I think the NCAA would have to rule on it personally. That's just my take. And what would suck about that is you would be really hurting a lot of those small programs, your Alabama States, your Tennessee States, et cetera, who rely on these big out of conference games for their paydays, and that supports so much of what they do. So I hope that's not the case, but
I mean, there's some big out of conference games in the Pac-12. I mean, USC goes to Alabama.
You think Clay Helton's rooting for the conference only schedule?
Conference only. No, it's not safe. Nope.
I mean, Michigan goes to Washington. I mean, what kind of money would that bring in? Bringing Michigan into Washington. So
sure.
I mean, there's some Colorado goes to Texas A&M. So there's some big out of conference games.
I think one of the things that's pushing that, and again, I don't want to sound all conspiratorial on this, but I think one of the things that's pushing that narrative, if you will, that idea, is a lot of these schools are looking at huge deficits when it comes to their sports programs. They're losing tons of money. We saw Dane pointed out that the University System of Georgia is telling their member institutions you're going to have to cut by 14%, 18%, something like that. It was
USG said 14%.
14%. Now that doesn't mean that the Athletic Association has to cut its budget by 14%, but it's just indicative of what's going on across government institutions when it comes to revenues. Revenues are down, taxes are down, people aren't working. 30 million people unemployed. That's a lot of revenue that's disappeared. You're already locked into these, the travel budget for the tennis team. You're locked into the travel budget for the baseball team. You're locked into the travel budget for tennis and volleyball, swimming. That's why a lot of programs, not Georgia, but other schools, their athletic programs run at a deficit. They do not make money. I know a lot of Georgia people don't believe that or don't know that because, Georgia talks about, when you get that $45 million check from the SEC network, seem to be doing pretty good, but not everybody gets that. So if you were a smaller conference and you don't have the TV deals that a lot of the SEC does, you run at a deficit. So when it comes down to, hey, we need to have a season, okay, but we can't send the men's golf team via plane, 9 states over, put them up for a hotel for 3 days, 4 days, pay for all their meals, when we could bust them over to a conference foe, that's going to drive a lot of people saying, hey, let's do just the conference games and let's do more, not even just conference games, let's do more busing instead of flying. I think you're going to see that. I'm not saying that's the main reason, but that is going to, when 2 reasons coincide, you see more dramatic action.
Yeah, how much money do you think it took the basketball team to get to Hawaii and back? That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too. No, go ahead, Trent.
What's going to happen? I mean, if you went to this all-conference schedule, what's going to happen to a school like Notre Dame?
Yeah,
that's the one thing the pandemic fixes. Notre Dame finally has to join a conference because
I love it.
of the pandemic. It only took 80,000 people dying for them to actually get into the system.
No, I think though too, you have to, and Roddy, you bring all that up. I think that this is one thing that hasn't been mentioned a lot, but I think deserves some credit is Georgia's athletic department definitely deserves some credit for that war chest that they've kind of built up over the years, that having the coffers stocked when it comes to that extra money that they've had laying around, and they get criticized a lot for it, about why aren't we spending this on facilities or whatever. Right now, I gotta say that's looking like a pretty genius move on their part.
Oh, you remember that story about Wimbledon having pandemic insurance? That's Greg McGarity. I mean, he comes out looking so good in this.
Yeah.
Well, no, here's the thing. I want to give Greg McGarity, Josh Brooks. Oh my God, why can't I think of the guy in charge of the resource office?
We're gonna let you drown. We're not.
Yeah, that's fine. Screw you guys know nothing. You bring nothing to the table. None of it. But Georgia's resource office, and for people that don't understand what resource, I mean, that's the people who take in the contributions, the people that when you get that email as an alumnus, alumni say, hey, you want to give to the university? That's the resource office, and I don't. That's just what they do, and they've done a fantastic job raising money. I think I've mentioned this on a radio show earlier in the week. I don't remember which one, but I remember sitting down with the second in command of the UGA Athletic Association, and he was bragging about how Georgia was the second most profitable school in the nation. I think only behind Texas. And I'm like, that's great, but you're a public institution. I mean, what the hell does being profitable do? I mean, I want you to be profitable. Don't get me wrong, but you were comparing your economics, your ledger sheet to other schools. You don't get a trophy for that. You don't get an SEC title for that. You don't get a first down against Florida in Jacksonville because you had the second most profitable school in the nation.
You might. If you connect to the right person, you might.
I think Florida fans would be willing to get you to number one if it meant you could get another first down too.
I'm just saying that it doesn't do anything. And then when you let, again, I bring up the Mike Bobo situation. There's more to it than that, but when you're letting a good coach walk because you won't give him a raise, when you're letting support staff, I remember they had a strength and condition guy that's making like $37,000. He's a master strength guy. He leaves and goes to the NFL and makes triple that. And then the next guy they hire, they wouldn't give the first guy a raise, but the second guy they hired, and they actually hired two people, they're paying 5 times as much. And it's like you could have given a raise to the guy that was there. I know Georgia's sports information people that didn't get raises because, well, what are you doing this year that you did do last year? I'm doing the same job, but I've been here 10 years and never gotten a raise. Oh, well, you don't deserve a raise because you're not doing anything new. The reluctance
That's how our
for
pay
them
structure works.
I gave you a 50-cent raise. You're doing less than you did last year. But that idea of just being, I don't want to say tightwads, but you can, being a good steward of the university's money is all well and good, but at some points you're making that money to have an effect. And when you've got Jake Fromm and he's dressing in the same locker room that Buck Bellew did, maybe it's time to upgrade the locker rooms. Just an idea, maybe you want to fix that up a little bit. And you weren't paying coaches anyway. That part of the administration is gone. Okay, Damon Evans and some of his folks are no longer there. The new administration, Greg McGarity, Josh Brooks, folks in the resource department, they built a real indoor facility.
Not that 25-yard thing?
Not the 25-yard glorified dining area, They revamped the $60 million on the West End Zone. Beautiful system. I mean, that's one of the best I've seen. And I've been to every SEC stadium except Texas A&M. So fantastic. They're building a huge, gigantic new building to give the coaches more room, to put in a gigantic weight room, the biggest in the SEC. The recovery rooms that they're going to do, the medical rooms they're building are going to be fantastic. The meeting spaces are going to be unreal. Again, just off of having spent $60 million on that new West End Zone. And the resource folks come out and say, hey, look, it used to be, we need money to compete. And they would, you get that letter or they'd reach out to a big donor and ask them for that. And they're like, okay, and then they would tout about how much money they'd made. And you feel like, wait a minute, if you're making this much money through donations and rights and licensing, why do you need just general money for that? But when the resource office came and said, look, we need $13 million for Foley Field. We need $6 million to revamp the tennis stadium. We need $60 million for West End Zone. When you give people a specific item that you need help with to compete, the checkbooks come out. And Greg McGarity, and I'm on a huge tangent here, but all credit to Greg McGarity and Josh Brooks and those guys for saying, look, when they brought in Kirby Smart, they're like, we're going to pay you top dollar. And what do you need? And when they're using 6-7 planes to go recruiting, when Mark Richt had 1, that tells you something. When they hire staff, they hire analysts, they have folks, player personnel, not coaches, who are making 6 figures, very high 6 figures, but that's what's needed to keep the program running. So they are not going to run at a deficit. So again, to bring this ball back around, I don't see the SEC schools saying, hey, we need to cut back on our expenses because we can do it. But there are a lot of other conferences who are running at deficits who are like, yeah, we need to cut out all these flights. We need to bust places. We need to, you want to go down for a weekend tournament? You're going to play the day you arrive, not going down the day before. You show up early in the morning, you play that day, we'll let you spend that night, and then you're back on the bus the next morning. It's going to be a tightening of the belts across the financial departments, so to speak.
I think
Georgia did. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, no, I think when you see that, though, this is a really difficult time for teams to run up against that, because you're about to, I mean, how far out are you from name, image, likeness at this point? And suddenly, you need the big dollars and the maximum exposure and I want the best recovery room because I'm going to be out there performing at the peak level. I think that it creates a bigger divide than there already even is existing.
Yep.
I think when you look back what Georgia did to improve some of their facilities, because if you go 7-8 years, I think most everyone was in agreement that a lot of the athletic facilities just needed to be upgraded. They were behind a lot of other teams, and to be able to go from super conservative and not go all the way to extravagant is pretty hard to do. If you give a 15-year-old $100 and say, come back with 50, they're not going to do that. They're going to go spend $100. So, the fact that I think they had tangible goals. One of the best things about that West End Zone project is that it's something that fans can see and be a part of year round. And that's unique to any other stadium in the country. So there's a tangible benefit beyond just the recruiting that people don't see because that's behind closed doors. Or for the tennis upgrade, they want to get in the NCAA tournament back to Athens, where it had been for so long. So the fact that I think they can tie these goals to tangible things that fans can benefit from, I think that's how Georgia's found success with it.
And I think back to the one time, and I've been doing this a really long time, since '93. And I remember one time the tennis facility was renovated. And I remember walking over there and I'm like, you guys painted. You didn't even replace the bad wood. You painted. This isn't renovation. This is freaking painting. You slack bastards. You sold this as come to you. And then they had the audacity to apply for the NCAA championship after repainting. I'm like, well, shit, if it's that easy, Baylor would have it every year, Come on. So it's just and that's not no shot against Baylor tennis. I think they're fantastic. Don't send me hate mail. I'm just saying they got the money that they can repaint every year and get them to come there. But it was the same with people had no idea how abysmal Georgia's baseball locker room / weight room was. Just garbage. Not trying to be mean, but when you bring a top player out of Cobb County, probably somebody Trent coached up, Trent's our baseball guy. When you bring one of his studs to UGA and you take them through that dingy little cave and say, yeah, this is where we work out. This is where we hit when it's raining. This is where, here's our I've seen home gyms better. And then they go to, Clemson, they go to South Carolina, and they go to that palace at LSU. They're like, yeah, I've grown up a Georgia fan, but I'm worried about getting some sort of fungal infection down there. And now they have a very nice situation at Foley Field. It's great. You walk through there, it's beautiful. And and to Dane, your point, when they renovated part of the press box area and put in a nice area for the fans, the big money folks, and you can now sit behind, and on the field level, you can sit behind the catcher. You're not screened off, but that is a great view. And if you like Georgia baseball, you're willing to reach into your pocket now and bring out some money because they incorporated the fans. The one thing I will still bitch about, because I think it's ridiculous that they haven't done this yet, is Georgia fans pony up all this money for an indoor practice facility. And I think there's been, maybe 2 times that Georgia fans have been able to enter that indoor practice facility. They should have daily tours showing that thing off. It's impressive, Bring back countdown to kickoff. Bring back a real photo day, not this garbage thing where they give you 30 minutes to get 2 autographs. Bring back
lord over you and scream at you like you're
it's like you have 30 minutes. You have 28 minutes. You have 27 minutes. That's garbage. Have an actual real photo day, picture day as they call it. Have UGA, have Kirby. If have some of the players out there that the fans don't get to see, and have it in that indoor practice facility in June, July, something like that. Do it, raise money for charity, charge money at the door, but let folks in to see that fantastic indoor facility you have, because it is a public university. They should be able to go into all the buildings. Pet peeve. All right, hey, I want to give a big shout out to. Go ahead.
I was just going to say all that to say, we'll see about conference only schedules.
Way to wrap the bow.
Yeah, way to bring it back. Hey, if you do want to see something that's a lot more effective, if you go by athensford.com, when you click on their website, you will get a $250 off any vehicle coupon. You basically just type in your first and last name, and you can print out your $250 off coupon. It's a pretty impressive little thing just for visiting their website. They have 827 vehicles available right now, but what I want people to know about is the special financing deals that they're doing. It's just mind-boggling what you can get out there. If you want to get some of the 2019, last year's Ford models, you can finance those at 0% APR for qualified buyers for 84 months. And we did the math last time. That is 7 years. And we had to whip out the calculator because we're journalists and bad journalists at that. We're not math majors, but 0% APR financing for 84 months on, they have 79 vehicles that match that qualification right now. So you can't beat that at all. If you want to get the 2020 vehicles, a bunch of those have 0% financing for 72 months, so 6 years. So split out that cost over 6 years. Like you want to get the 2020 Ford F-150, the F-150, the best-selling truck in the world. Hey, you can get one of those for 0% APR financing, or if you don't want to finance it that long, take $17,000 off the MSRP on that. So 2 options there. Basically how you want to do it. They do have no payments for 120 days. If you're in a situation where you're like, look, I need a new vehicle, or I need to buy one now, but your finances have gone through what a lot of people's have, furloughs, layoffs, stuff like that, changing jobs, looking for a job, but you need a vehicle. No payments for 120 days through their financing facility over there at Athens Ford. I know that you can bring in your own financing, or you can go through Ford Credits. The rates are phenomenal right now. They're doing a great job to try to take care of people. And again, I won't get into some of the stuff I've heard about Athens Ford, some of the stuff they've done for the community lately, because they just don't advertise it. They just do it. They are fantastic members of the Athens community. And I say, hey, look, even if you aren't willing to support someone who supports the Bulldogs in a huge way, support someone who supports the Athens community. So if you need a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, if you want to go get one of their pre-owned ones, you're going to get a lifetime powertrain warranty so long as it has under 80,000 miles on it. So they're doing great work, and we appreciate that immensely.
Right. Real quick question here from Ronnie Brown, kind of piggybacking off of the last topic we were talking about. He says, if it goes to conference only, how do you see that affecting the 4-game redshirt rule? That would be quite interesting to see how they would bend that around. I
don't think they would change the rule, but I just think you'd have a lot fewer chances to get those guys in, because that fantastic series that Anthony Dasher's doing, the roster review, when he goes down, each number, 99, 98, 97, when he hits on some of those guys who redshirted last year, he'll mention the 3 or 4 games they got into, but it wasn't, LSU, Florida, games like that. It was, it was like Arkansas State, it was, I just don't know that. I don't think they would change the rule, but I just don't think you'd see nearly as many guys playing. Plus, there's not that rule would have been very nice in Kirby's first year, but it's going to be a lot tougher for some of these freshmen to see the field this year.
Especially not having gone through spring practice.
Oh yeah.
Agreed. Speaking of potential freshmen, or I guess rising seniors, as it were, a lot of discussion about Barrett Carter lately. Was revealed yesterday on Tigers Illustrated. I'll get to that. It was revealed yesterday on Tigers Illustrated that the nation's number 35 overall player, the number 1 inside linebacker, and a 4-star in the Rivals 100, will be announcing his decision next Tuesday evening on some Atlanta television. I think that everything. I don't know. It doesn't. Well, Trent, let's go to you first, and then I'll tell you guys how I feel about it.
I mean, I think I'll cut it short. I think all signs point towards Clemson right now. I mean, I think Georgia's fault there. I think they are in the top two, but I think all signs point towards Clemson being that school right now for him. And I think Georgia does sit well for Munden up there, but in state. But I do think they trail for Carter, and I think if he is close to a decision, I think that's leaning towards the Tigers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a tough situation for Georgia. The longer it went, probably the better it would have been for Georgia's chances. But Clemson got that last visit. They've got his good buddy Jordan Hancock already committed from North Gwinnett. And for all the, there's been some great players come out of North Gwinnett and come to Georgia, but Georgia's also lost a lot of kids out of North Gwinnett. And one of the things that I keep reminding people about Barrett Carter is, yes, he's in Atlanta, and yes, he's in, it's prime territory, but he's not originally from Georgia. He's a kid who moved in from Chicago. So it's not like this is necessarily the hometown for him. He does want to be close to his family, but I mean, realistically, you break it down, what's the difference in Clemson and Athens time-wise? It's negligible. I just think that there's a lot working on his end. Now, we did get a question about this, though, from Primetime Dog, and he wants to know, what do you think are the separating factors that has Carter leaning to Clemson over UGA? Do you think it's early playing time?
I don't really know that. I mean, as far as that goes, I think, Clemson's had a lot of success in Georgia. That's one thing they've done. They've been able to come into Georgia and land a couple of top prospects, going back to Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, a couple of years ago, Terry, AJ Terrell,
Tyler McMichael, Andrew Booth,
Lee Anthony Williams. So they've been able to come in and land some top prospects. But I think that as a whole, that has Clemson had more success putting guys in the NFL at the linebacker position? Georgia's done well in recent years at offensive line. Georgia's done well at running back, but they haven't put as many linebackers in the NFL as of late as probably Clemson has, or Alabama. And that could be a deciding factor. It could be, just that he feels more home at Clemson. But that long ways to go is until signing day. But usually the bad thing about this is usually when you get on Clemson's commit list, you stick, and there's not many guys flip flopping there. So.
I don't know that it's the playing time necessarily either, because I think that Georgia went so light at inside linebacker last year that the opportunities are there moving forward. I will say this, and I hope people understand what I'm talking about when I say this. To me, Clemson has a certain kind of kid it recruits. They're pretty straight up kids. They're really good kids. They kind of buy into the whole system. And Barrett Carter is very much one of those guys. He's not a big flash guy. He's not out here, promoting himself all the time. He's just a business guy who, is more concerned with, it seems like, his academics and his community standing than he is with his football. And that's probably because he doesn't have to worry about what a good football player he is. I think that I think that that's part of it too. And like I said, I think the Hancock factor was big. Clemson getting that last visit prior to the shutdown was big. And honestly, I don't know how much different it would have been if things would have remained open, because I do think that from everything we heard after that visit, it felt like Clemson just was continuing to climb. I think that may have been the one that put them over the top anyway. Paul Strelo over at Tigers Illustrated said that this commitment date had been in the works apparently for some time. So I'll tell you this, and I said this on the board too. We did the most wanted piece on him today. There's no minimizing the loss. It would be silly for me to try to downplay it and say that he's they'll just find somebody else. The kid's the number one inside linebacker in the nation. He plays very similarly to Roquan Smith. I'm not saying that's what he's going to be in college, but in high school, he's that kind of athlete. He's a sideline to sideline guy, great speed, excellent vision out on the field. So Georgia gave it a run and did all they could, but in the end, I mean, you are going to lose some kids, and unfortunately for them, this one's a blow because you need to stack up at the inside linebacker position in this class after going light last year, and Barrett Carter would have been a huge piece to get, but I do think Clemson is going to end up with a great player.
Well, sometimes
there aren't many programs that Georgia's going to take a backseat to in terms of recruiting. In a lot of cases, Clemson may be one of those, because what are the two goals of most high school players? Get me to the NFL and let's win a national championship. Probably in that order for most of them. Clemson's doing both of those things better than Georgia right now.
For a while.
Yeah, completely fair.
We do. I thought this was a good question from Jason Rayburn. It says, thoughts on Chaz Chambliss? I watched him play 3 years and feel he's better playing around line of scrimmage. I don't feel like he's a linebacker at the next level. So talk about Chaz Chambliss.
Yeah, well, Chaz, we did the most wanted article on him last week. And so we kind of went into his recruitment. It's going to be really interesting, I think, to see how he develops at the next level, because I do think that there's a sense that possibly he could play with a hand in the ground. I mean, you're talking about a kid who right now I think is pushing 260, according to what we got him listed at Rivals, and doesn't look to be totally filled out just yet. So, you put another 20, 30 pounds on him, suddenly you got a 6'3", 290 kid. That makes a great defensive end. Now, I think that he ends up kind of playing that hybrid jack role. I think he'll have the opportunity to stand up, but I think that he's very capable of playing with his hand in the ground. And I do feel good about Georgia's chances with Chaz Chambliss as it stands today.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him more as a especially early in his career, more of a situational guy. As far as against run heavy sets, you bring a guy like that, you could probably plug in at middle linebacker in those against those run heavy teams, or stand up on the outside. But I think he has I think his future is at defensive end. But I think coming in, I think he'll just be a situational guy early in his career, and see what he grows into as far as size and that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a true tweener. I mean, when it comes to his body type, he's a kid who realistically could go either way. And I know that people hate to hear this. It sounds like we're hedging our bets to say, well, we'll just see how he develops. But he's a kid whose body type is right there on the line of being hand in the ground versus being standing up. So I think that it just depends on how things go and how his body matures.
We kind of have to remember too, because Georgia's a 3-4 base defense, but they're they're basically in a 4-2-5 90% of the time. So I think you'll see him on that kind of like 4-2-5 defensive end type.
We're going to blame if Barrett Carr does go to Clemson, we're going to blame Alvin J. Todd, because he says he hates seeing his local high school kids go to other schools. So we'll completely blame him. He also pointed out that Clemson stole Mitch Hyatt. And it's true, but at the same time, I mean, the fact that his uncle played at Clemson, one of their national championship teams, meant that Mitch was headed there forever. But yeah, everyone
didn't have the career. He didn't have the career everybody thought he was going to.
You've been covering recruiting longer than any of us. I mean, it is what I said about North Gwinnett Fair. I mean, it's not exactly, despite the proximity to Georgia, it's really not the most Georgia-friendly school.
No, but you can say
it's not a pipeline school.
It's not, but then neither was Buford. Neither was Carver Columbus. You can point out to Valdosta. Every school that puts out 5-6 D1 kids a year, you don't get that many of them. Grayson was supposed to be this Georgia pipeline. It's 40 minutes away. How many Grayson kids came to Georgia? It just
that panned out.
Hey, be nice. Come on,
words, man. Come on.
But hey, you can say the same thing about Carver Columbus and Grayson and
sure.
I mean North Gwinnett. I mean, there's it's tough. I will say this about some of these schools: we give way too much credit to saying, "Oh, the coach there's forcing kids to go elsewhere." In the hierarchy of where a kid is deciding to go to school. They mentioned it right off the bat. Number one, who's going to get me to the NFL? Number two, can we win a championship there? Because even here's the thing, even if you can't get to the NFL, if you can win a title with that college team, you're opening up a card dealership, because you were part of that championship team. You're never buying drinks again. You're never buying a meal again. That alumni is going to take care of you forever. Even if you were the third string punter, you were on that, you got that ring, you wear it everywhere. You wear it in the shower, you wear it at church. It's like, look, I was part of that team. You do that. I get it. So that's ensures your future success, if you will, being part of that. The criteria, how do I get along with that coach, the head coach, that position coach, my main recruiter? Way down at the bottom is what my head coach wants. Now, some of these kids are very tight with their head coach. And if you have a kid, he's like, I don't think you should go to Georgia. I don't think you should go to Tennessee. I don't think you should go to Florida. That will matter. But it doesn't, or it very seldom supersedes all the other things pointing a kid to a certain school. So that's just that's what I've noticed over 23 years of covering recruiting. You can have certain coaches who are anti this school or anti that school, but you still see those kids signing with the schools that they're going against. I don't want to go down the list of guys who I thought were anti-Georgia, because you never know when Kirby's going to hire them to come to Georgia, because there's some really good coaches out there that, perfect example, Dell McGee. Dell McGee banned Georgia from visiting his campus. I think it was Devin Burns, the quarterback, that was trying to commit to Georgia, came up to dog night, and they did let him commit. Dell was furious, told Georgia, you can't come here. 2 years later, Georgia's on campus. They're trying to get Gabe Wright. They miss on him, and then they get Isaiah Crowell. It's if the coach is against it, it might matter, but it's not the biggest thing. So your point about schools not being a pipeline, there's too many variables other than where the kid goes to school.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that you're going to have an easier time recruiting mom. You're going to have an easier, and that's going to be a lot more influential. I'll bring up one of those dirty words that we use behind the scenes, the handler. If the kid's got a handler, you got to impress them. But I think that, I don't see there being any negative feelings necessarily from North Gwinnett. I just don't think that it's not exactly, kids aren't a lock to go to Georgia just because they're from North Gwinnett High School.
I don't think any kids from Gwinnett County are locks to go to Georgia. I mean, just because a parent moves to the Atlanta area for a job, more than likely they're going to reside in the Gwinnett County area. And there's a lot of kids that are not from the state of Georgia that live in Gwinnett County. I mean, you see
that's
it
a good
all the
point.
time in Grayson, or at Grayson, at North Gwinnett. I mean, you see kids that, they're not from here, but they move up here. The parents get a job in the Atlanta area, and Gwinnett County is kind of the closest thing, as a nice area to live in to where they end up calling home. And you see a bunch of kids.
Great point.
Have factored in that.
Get out of here with your facts and reason. I want to hear any of that. Hey, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at the Aaron Overhead Doors. They've redesigned their website to really show off the fact that, I always mention the residential work they do, but they also do a ton of commercial work. So now when you go to the front, it's residential and commercial, because they do a ton of commercial work. Because guess what? Businesses have overhead doors. They have garage doors. They have doors, bays that they need replaced and fixed and repaired, stuff like that. And our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors can do that. They've won the Best of Gwinnett Awards. Speaking of Gwinnett, in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, they're probably a shoo-in to win it for 2020. They've won the Humanitarian Award in 2019, Pinnacle Fan Favorite 2018, and it's just, I like the Google pops up and it's like, hey, 5-star rating, 5-star rating, 5-star rating. So when we talk about recruiting, we talk about Gwinnett, we talk about somebody who supports the Dogs. That is Overhead Door Company. They're just one of the best out there. And again, they are really trying to help out people during this pandemic. I know that Ryan Lucia was trying to help out other businesses. He's like, look, he's like, if you own a small business, let me know. And he's trying to get the word out. He's trying to run his own business, but at the same time, he's trying to help other people. So that's a good guy. And infinitely indebted to him for sponsoring not only this podcast, but UGAsports.com. And if you are a Georgia fan, you get 10% off of your services if you just let them know that. So if you are a Clemson fan and you're a Dabo Swinney guy, you might want to tell them that you're a Georgia fan. If you could, hey, it's between you and the Lord. If you want to lie like that,
grit your teeth and bear it. Ryan Lucia will probably accept your commitment to Big G.
Exactly. He will accept your fandom commitment, your fandom switching of alliances. He'll probably make you wear a hat or something just to take a picture, just so you can share it on your Facebook page. I want to give a big shout out to him. And also, while I'm talking about the Aaron Overhead Doors, I'll talk about another one of our friends at Academia Brewing Company. Academia, they just put out a new beer. I will say that I came down here to my aunt's condo in Orange Beach, and I brought what I thought was enough beer. It was not enough beer. You cannot have enough Academia beer. We burned through that. I burned through that quite fast. So, I would like to say we be able to blame somebody else, but no, that was just me. But the cool thing is, Ollie's 16 now, so he can drive my drunk butt home. So, hey, I'm on the beach. Come get me. So he can come pick me up. So so big shout out to our friends at Academia Brewing Company. They're doing fabulous work. They're creating fabulous beers, and I mean, if you want a place to eat, you can't beat them. I mean, they have all these different foods, all these different, you can take 10 different people in there and everybody, with all these varied tastes, they will walk out happy. So big shout out to them for taking care of such a wide assortment of taste. And if you have people that like beer but Jake likes those fruity, god awful, high hop beers, whereas I like, a malt porter or a lager, something like that. Big shout out to, Aaron over at Academia Brewing Company for catering to our taste and letting us be able to have a staff meeting where everybody gets a different beer that they like, plus a different meal that they like, and it's all reasonably priced. So shout out to
sounds like you already been into the Academias today there.
No, right. I still have a third of a gallon of that.
The margarita
by the gallon. So shout out to Cactus Cantina. When you pull up, they give you a gallon of margarita. It's the greatest thing ever.
So that's why he's still at the beach. He couldn't make it back home sober.
All you need is a straw. All right. Good question here. Talking about recruiting, and one of the storylines that Georgia fans heavily invested in throughout this past 2020 cycle. It's from our good buddy OU Herschel Walker over here on the dog vent. He wants to know, he says, could there have been a better landing spot for Zack Evans with regards to UGA? He won't be strengthening Florida or Tennessee, and Georgia will only face him if we wind up in the Liberty or Alamo Bowls. If we end up playing TCU, we have a bigger problem than a running back. Which is a fair thing to say. Thoughts on the Zack Evans situation, TCU being the landing spot? Trent, how do you think it shakes out for him?
I mean, I think it, obviously it shakes out well for Georgia. I mean, not having to go up against him every year because, I saw him in Orlando. He was the most. I never saw Kendall Milton, granted, but the most talented running back in Orlando. He was definitely that. So it just not having to go up against him every year will be a plus for Georgia. But I think the longer this went, the higher chances it was that he was going to stay home, especially during this pandemic that we're in. So, I mean, I don't think it works out in Georgia's favor that he stayed home. It works out for TCU, obviously, that they get a 5-star running back. But,
did they stole from Georgia?
I hope he matures. I hope he matures where he has a successful career. I just want to see him, do well and mature. That's what I want to see him do.
If you're rooting against that kid at this point, you're just a hater. I mean, realistically, you're not going to have to face the kid. You're not going to have to see him. I mean, I get that it was a convoluted and up and down recruitment and just one of the crazier ones that we've ever followed. But you have to feel good because you go look over at Florida's commitment list. There were 0 running backs taken last year. So I think that's it. The fact that he didn't go there alone should probably earn him some Georgia fans, I think.
And I do think that if he would have went to Tennessee, it'd hurt Georgia worse than going to Florida, because that is what Jim Chaney's trying to do over there. He's trying to, especially with that offensive line that he's brought in, bringing a guy like Zack Evans to run behind that offensive line would have probably hurt Georgia worse than him going to Florida. So,
my God, they took 7 defensive backs last year.
Who, Florida?
Hey,
Florida, yeah.
Just a lot of people blame Zack Evans in this whole thing, and one day I'm sure some of the storylines will come out about what happened there. I've heard different things, but this was not all Zack Evans. I mean, I know there was a whole thing with his coach and stuff like that, but there were a lot of adults that failed this kid, and there were a lot of other storylines that the schools that were involved, trying to get him away from Georgia, and just the Georgia went head to head with, that put a lot of crap in that kid's head. Then it's not fair to Zack Evans to say this is all on him. And I mean, it's easy. We love to be outraged. We love to hate on people. We love to see a kid, especially number 1 running back. Well, he's not as good as my guy. Don't hate on Zack Evans. This whole situation is not all of his doing. He was failed by a lot of people. So best of luck to him. I think that is the perfect landing spot. So, you're not I think about Georgia won the recruiting battle. They got him. And then they said, no, this is not going to work. Well, if they realized that earlier, then maybe
he should be a legend in Fort Worth too. I mean, he's the first 5-star player to ever go to TCU. So he's got a real shot of being something truly special, setting himself up for a long, long time if he's able to get his career in the direction it should.
Yeah, if he matures, like you said. I mean, I think 3 years of success and getting into the NFL would help.
Yeah, no question about it.
It's an important point, though, Roddy, that this is it's not all on Evans. I mean, he's a teenage kid and he's in a situation. I'm not saying that some of the blame doesn't go to him, because some of it probably does too.
Yes.
But when you hear a Kirby Smart say that's just a situation we can't get in, I think what he means is talking about all that comes with it. If he could just get a player on campus and coach him and figure it out, I think he'd feel good about that. But understanding everything of the waves of people that come with it, it's just not something worth dealing with.
Yeah, especially not when you've got other options that are maybe not as talented, but probably not too far. The gap's not that wide. So, and that you can get a good base behind it. Random question here for the week. Go ahead. No?
I would say, speaking of a good option, I do want to point out to folks, if you go to YourPie today, go to their website. If you buy a $25 gift card for a graduate, they're mainly doing this for the graduates out there, they will add an extra $5. So you can not only get your $25 gift card becomes a $30 gift card. So, and that will go a long way at YourPie. That is not an expensive place to eat. It's the best pizza you can get, but it is not expensive. So basically buy them 2 pizzas to get a third one free with that, them kicking in $5. And of course, they have the brownies and all the other stuff. You get the sandwiches, the custom pastas. So when you get a chance, swing by our friends at YourPie. Again, that's our first advertiser when I first came to UGAsports.com, just because I happened to sit in the back of a plane with Drew French. So he's been supporting UGA Sports forever, and he is trying to take care of his franchisees and the people that are members of the YourPie family. And he's also maybe the biggest Georgia fan I know. So get a chance and you're trying to support your local businesses, be sure to support YourPie and take advantage of the deal they have offered right now. So all those poor 2020 graduates who didn't get didn't get to walk, you at least send them a YourPie gift card so they can eat. It'd be nice.
I bet YourPie will cater for their graduation party too.
I'm sure they will.
All right. Random question of the week. I always open it up on the board and I say, hey, we'll talk about anything you want. I don't care. So once in a while we get slipped a weird one. And I love those questions because it's just fun. Dom Goes Wolf wants to know, he says, let's talk donuts. What is your favorite style, flavor, or place to get them from? Where are you?
Give this one to Roddy.
Yeah, let Roddy
You,
lead.
Trent. You go to hell. Go to hell and you die. Actually, I will say when we came down here to Orange Beach, I got 5 different people sent me a direct message saying, "Hey, May 5th, 6th, and 7th, they're having the key lime glaze at Krispy Kreme. They have the Krispy Kreme stuffed donuts, but then they're actually glazing them with the key lime glaze." When that many people hit me up, I'm like, oh, okay, apparently I've been voted the person to go try this out. So I will say the key lime glaze Krispy Kreme donuts, that's a hit. That's something they should just do year round. That was phenomenal. So
they were legit, huh? I was wondering. I was waiting on the review.
That's lights out. Just in general, I mean, yes, Trent, you're right. I've had many a donut. I've had the Voodoo Donuts. I've had Dunkin' Donuts, but I mean, there's nothing that beats a Krispy Kreme. Actually, I know there is a place down here that they do that kind of Voodoo Donut. They have like 37 wild different varieties. The line goes out the door. The City Donuts. So if you make it to Orange Beach, try City Donuts. That's probably the best. But for just in general, that key lime Krispy Kreme, can't beat it.
Trent, what's your donut of choice?
I don't know. I like just the normal Krispy Kreme, light on, just a regular donut. No,
hard to beat a light on, dude. A warm glazed Krispy Kreme is a decadent treat.
But do you make a hamburger out of it like some of these places are?
Is a donut a hamburger?
Yeah. I can't bring myself to do that. I've never eaten one of those things, but like, you know, and I'm not against like sinful food or anything, but that's just over the top. I'm not saying I wouldn't try it, but I'm not seeking that out.
It's like those places that have a hunk of chocolate cake as a garnish for a milkshake.
Yeah, right. Dane, what do you do for donuts, man?
So I have a funny donut story. I grew up in East Dublin, and
is this appropriate for families?
Very much so. Where I grew up, we would go to the dentist in Vidalia. Hugh Jordan Dentistry, shout out. If you want to sponsor with your dentistry, come on. And so we're there, and they're like, hey, go around the corner 2 blocks. There's this place called Bill's Donuts, and you should get this. And I'm like, why is the dentist recommending me a donut? So I think they had some kind of conspiracy happening there where they were kind of in cahoots together to make some money.
Yeah.
But it worked. They were great.
The fix is in. I wish I could remember the name of that bakery in Statesboro. I went down there and spoke to the Bulldog Club in Statesboro. Got the next morning, and there's this little bakery that had tons of donuts in it, and that's probably one of the best ones I've ever had in my life. Didn't help that I was hungover, but you know, that was a good place. I need to remember that one. We'll give him a shout out next week when I do some research.
Shout out to down at Dane's home, Williamson's Bakery makes a great donut. Very tasty down there in Dublin.
If you get Williamson's Bakery right after Brian Subs, they're right there together, so you're good.
That's right. I do that every time I go through Dublin. Yeah. So. But had Ned's Donuts the other day. They're local guys in Athens. But I agree with Trent. Hard to beat a Krispy Kreme. I am a big fan of a chocolate glazed cream filled donut as well.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's do some rapid fire questions here from our YouTube page, if you would. Just get one person to pop in on each one of these. Chase Dutton, though, says his favorite donut is chocolate covered. And Chase has good taste, obviously. Jay says, do you hang on.
Learn how to use YouTube, Roddy.
Shut up. That wasn't him. It was
phonetics. Go back to the phonetics.
No, UGA football says which Georgia player would have a chance at the Heisman this year?
It's Jamie Newman. It's a quarterback award at this point.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
What about Pickens, though?
I don't think a receiver can win a Heisman.
What's he going to do? I mean, if he puts up 3,000 yards, maybe, or something outrageous.
But that also means that Jamie Newman threw those passes.
True, but at the same time, when you some of the circus catches that we see this kid make, you know that builds momentum when it's like, oh, did you see this catch? Sports Center top 10 highlight. Then the next week he has 2 touchdowns. And then, they talk about what did George Pickens do this week? It's another highlight catch. You really start to build on that. And then you get him into an SEC title game, maybe a national championship game, a playoff game, and he has those big things. Those can build. I know what you mean, though. It does feel like a quarterback award,
I think if a receiver ever wins it, they have to be a kick and punt returner too, though. I think it's at that point.
That's a good point.
That makes sense.
That does make sense. Hang on. Travis Goff says, what are the Dogs' chances of getting back to a top 5 or number 1 class with this year's group of kids?
Definitely top 5. I don't think that you'll see them dip below that level under Kirby Smart. I think that it's just too important to him, and they put such a huge emphasis on it. Number 1 is going to be tough. Ohio State's got a great class. Clemson's putting together another strong one. But as I've told people before, I didn't think they'd pull it off last year or the year before, and both times they pulled it off on signing day. So Georgia closes as strong as anybody. I'm not going to discount them. I'm not going to write off the possibility that they could do it again this year.
And Jeff Dyer to pull it together says, hey, Roddy, was it Sugar Magnolia? I think that's exactly what the place was. So thank you, Jeff Dyer for coming up with that. Jason Rayburn says, that's actually a pretty good question from Jason Rayburn. Who starts at running back for UGA in the first game?
Zamir White.
I think so as well.
Are you sure? I'm just saying, James Cook, depending on what offense they put out there in that first snap,
he might not be. He might not take the first snap. I think Zamir White will be the starter, but I think, James Cook's going to have a serious role in this offense, but I think Zamir White will be the go-to back, the featured back.
Well, I'm just saying, if he's not out there on the first snap, he's not the starter. When Todd Monken rolls, I'm just saying, when we actually get the list of starters and they base it, which is really weird sometimes because Georgia gets the ball or Georgia's opponent gets the ball. They put out a weird defense, and they put out a weird offense, and Georgia's like, okay, we got to send out a dime package, and all of a sudden you get a starting defensive lineman isn't out there. You expect to be, but you've got a dime nickel back out there. A dime back out there, and you're like, he started the game. It's like, yeah. But I'm just saying, under Todd Monken, he might decide to do a little something interesting off the first snap of the game. And James Cook's out there lined up as a wide receiver.
2 years ago, D-Rob started every game and didn't have a catch. So
That's a great point. Again, you and your damn facts and figures. Anyway, folks, we're gonna take a break for this week. That is it.
Were you gonna say we were taking a commercial break, but we're actually ending the show?
Commercial break.
You could throw another sponsor in here if you'd like.
Tell Ollie to take the straw out of the margaritas, man.
Shut up. No, hey, that crazy son of mine. So he went out and did some late night fishing, late night workout, got up early, went fishing in the morning. They came back, took a nap, and I went for a walk in the afternoon. He decided to go for a jog. He jogged for 13.1 miles.
That's not a jog, dude. That's a half marathon.
He ran a half marathon, just kind of in that. He's like, Dad, I set a new personal best. I'm like, how far did you go? 8, 9, 10 miles? 13.1. I'm like, so big shout out to Ollie for all of a sudden deciding in the afternoon to become a half marathoner. So
I'm sure he's not waving to any girls on the run either.
No, not at all. Big shout out to our friends at Classic City Eats on Baxter Street. We'd like, hopefully, maybe next week or so, we're back to doing a show with Classic City Eats. And I know they have done a great job in kind of remodeling that place. I can't wait to see what it looks like. We know they just remodeled the entire menu. Again, Moho pork. Jump on it. Big shout out to Athens Forge and the deals that they're running, Academic Brewing Company, all the new beers they have up there, Your Pie, and all the deals that they're putting out for the newly graduated folks. And of course, our friends at 365 Game Day and 11 Live and Aaron Overhead Doors. Shout out to Dane, Trent, and Jake for being on the show with me today. And thank to all of you for tuning in. We will see you next Tuesday. We're going to take a quick break. It'll last about 7 days, and we will see you then. You guys take care.
Thank you.